All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome as you're joining in here. Thank you for joining us late on a Wednesday night, May 20th, last day of verification town hall. We've done a lot of these with Caroline. She's done, issue specific town halls, region specific town halls, and I really want to put this out with it being last day of verification to answer any final questions that you have as members. So if it's your first time joining us, there's a little Q&A at the bottom there. So please click that. We want to get to as many of your questions as possible tonight. And as we kick things off, Caroline, how are you doing? Where are you in the province today?
Well, thank you, first of all, everyone, for being here. It's so appreciated. I know in most parts of the province right now, it's a beautiful evening. You could be doing anything else, but you're here. So I truly appreciate it. Where am I? I am in Fort St. John in the Northeast Peace region of BC. It's absolutely beautiful around here. We were in Dawson Creek earlier today. We had a couple meet and greets today. Really, really positive response, really good questions from people. And one thing that I'll say came through in the meetings I had was, I mean, lots of things, lots of different themes, and certain themes are different around the province. But one of the things I heard today was so common to other areas, which is people who are desperately worried about their kids' opportunities, which, as anyone who's joined any of these town halls before with me will know, it's a huge driving thing for me as well. Like, that's why I'm doing this. It's my kids. It's worry about what their opportunities are going to look like when they enter the working world. They're young now, they're 6 and 8, so they're a few years away. But if we keep going down this road, if we keep heading on this trajectory, we're going to end up in a place where even more British Columbians are leaving this province than we're already seeing. Last year, it was 70,000. That's too many of our best and brightest leaving this province. And it's one of those things where, like, especially like here in the Northeast, you've got oil and gas, you've got all kinds of different sectors, you've got the dams that power this entire province's electricity system. Like, it's an incredible region for supporting the rest of the province. And so it's abundantly clear here how much this province has to offer us in terms of the resources that are in the ground. They don't do anything when they're just sitting there. We need to develop them. We need to develop those opportunities, that potential, that prosperity that keeps our young people here. So that's what I've been up to. That's where I am. But I'm just pleased to and looking forward to be taking your questions tonight.
Thank you, Caroline. And we're going to jump into one of the first questions from the audience here. I do see some questions coming in about verification as well. We do have members of our
Mm.
team on this live call. So as we're going through the town hall and answering public questions, if you do need assistance with verification or need a hand, please do put that in the Q&A as well, and someone from our team will jump on with you. First question here from the audience. A lot of people feel like they're working harder than ever and still falling behind. What would you actually do in your first year as premier to make life more affordable?
Oh my gosh, it's a sentiment I hear everywhere I go, including today in the Northeast. But I mean, it's like the deal is supposed to be you work hard and it pays off. And right now that's not happening. People are working harder than ever. And exactly as the person who asked this question says, they're falling further behind. That's not right. There's so many different areas that we need to deal with to get on top of this. I'll just name a couple. One is we have to have the economic opportunities coming to this province, the investment in this province that gets those good jobs and those good paychecks coming home with people. Right now, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. And please feel free to ask me about any of these things. I'm happy to answer questions. But we've got DRIPA creating so much uncertainty on the land base that none of the big companies, none of the BC-based businesses want to put any more money here and create those investment opportunities, those job opportunities, and so on. We've got private property rights under threat. That's a big issue when people are looking at where they want to invest as well. We've got um, huge regulation issues where we're just adding so many burdens upon any company, any business, any person who wants to actually set down roots here and build something. The government makes it next to impossible. So we've got to repeal TRIPA. We've got to protect private property rights. We've got to make sure we're ending the economic strangulation by regulation that's happening under this government. That's all on the economy side, but also on the other side. People forget, like, we talk about affordability, we talk about getting ahead. People always lose sight of the fact that what we're really like, one of the biggest um, costs that people face comes out of their paycheck before it even hits their bank account. It's the cost of government. in the form of taxes. And we don't think about that, but that is a cost that we're dealing with in our cost of living. It's spun completely out of control under this government. We've seen a government that's creating five public sector jobs for every one private sector job. A government that has grown just in its bureaucrats by 39% since the NDP formed government. Like, so we've got to rein in government, get that economy booming again, and provide tax relief to British Columbians so that they can make a better go of it. So those are some of the starting points. I haven't even talked about housing and other issues. So please, if you have questions about that, do ask me. I'm happy to expand on any of those points.
Thank you. Next one here says, what kind of conservative party are you trying to build, and how do you bring together people from different parts of the movement?
Yeah, look, so when you look at the candidates in this leadership race, there's not a lot we're going to disagree on some things, right? Like we all want smaller government. We all want lower taxes. We all want less regulation. Like those are basic conservative things that we're all going to come at it from. But I actually think it's more than that. I think we have to actually go way beyond the tinkering around the edges of tax cuts and deregulation. We do need to do those things. They are very important. But we need to address the ideology that the NDP has pushed into every single aspect of the public service in British Columbia and every single aspect of public life. The fact that, and I'll name one example, is our education system. I feel very passionate about this. The amount of activism that the NDP has pushed into our education system to the point where kids are being taught that the land that they stand on isn't theirs. The fact that they're being taught only about the bad things in our past, never about the good things that we've achieved as British Columbians together. How lucky we are to be here. Pride in their province and their country. Kids aren't taught that. So taking on some of those issues and making sure that we're getting to the root of it and pulling the root of the NDP's ideology out of the public sector, out of the school system, and so on. I think we've got to do those things. I think we can do those things in a way that demonstrates to British Columbians a real alignment with the way they think about these things too. So I think that's a key part of it, as well as growing our appeal by showing that alignment between what we believe as conservatives, what I believe as a conservative, and the way that everyday British Columbians think about the world around them.
Thank you. And just to kind of tee up for the next one here, Caroline, and mention that we do have, several members of our team that can hop on and help people with verification tonight. Question here from Jason. He says, I want to vote, but I'm skeptical about registering for digital ID. I think it's a bit ironic standing up against digital ID as part of the conservative platform.
Yeah, look, the reality is the way this vote has been set up has been set by the party. It's not set by the individual campaigns. So we're working within a system that we've been handed. I think the important thing is, if you want your voice heard, it might be uncomfortable for you. I think it's really important that you do it if you do feel comfortable doing that, because you want to have your voice heard. You want to have your say in what the future of this party looks like. And I think we're really in a pivotal moment right now. And it is not just about this party. It's like, yeah, the future of our party, what that looks like, what being conservative means in BC. That's one of the decisions we're making. But we're also making a decision around what kind of province do we want to create for ourselves, and not just ourselves, but our kids. I think that is truly how big this moment is. I think that there's so much at stake that is really worth you having that say, if you can find it in yourself to do that.
Thank you. And yeah, as mentioned, we have people on the call helping. I've already seen some come in from Shirley and from Al and Sharam. Thank you for being on here and needing assistance. We'll get you sorted tonight. Next question here from Jay says, British Columbia is struggling with affordability, investment flight, and slow project approvals. What specific reforms would you implement in your first 12 months to restore investor confidence and grow the private sector economy?
Thank you. Oh God, yeah. So there's so many, to be honest. I've talked about a few, and I can, as I've said, please ask me if you want me to go into more detail about any of them. The biggest thing that I hear from business is they're not putting a penny into BC until the uncertainty on the land base caused by DRIPA is dealt with. So we've got to send that message from a policy level. Repeal DRIPA in full as a legislative priority. Make sure that we're properly advocating for and defending and arguing for private property rights in the courts. That's crucial. Undercade, and I'm going through these quickly because we touched on them a bit already, and then I have more to say beyond that. I want to make sure that we are undertaking a significant red tape reduction strategy, getting rid of the burdensome layers of regulation that have been added on by the NDP. This isn't about being, of course, like environmentally irresponsible. It's getting rid of the ideologically driven stuff that we're seeing that makes it harder and harder to do business in BC. Look at, just as an example, the Clean BC plan under the NDP. The Clean BC plan, it sounds really nice, clean, right? Like, who can be against something that's clean? The reality is, and studies by various business associations have showed this, that Clean BC is, based on the government's own numbers, a plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by killing BC's economy. That's genuinely what their plan is, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions under Clean BC. We need to scrap it. We need to get rid of it, because we're not going to kill our economy to do this. Like, its cost to our economy is way beyond what people realize. When the NDP says something's going wrong, they blame it, usually in the economy, they blame it on tariffs, right? They say it's America's fault, it's Trump's fault, it's those tariffs. Studies have shown that the cumulative impact of Trump's tariffs on BC's economy, even taking into account our counter tariffs, is something like $43 billion over 4 years. The impact of Clean BC, based on the government's own numbers, $110 billion over 4 years. So we have got to take that out of the layers of burdens and issues that we place, that this government is using to suppress our economic growth. I think it's really important we do that. So there's a whole bunch of things there. I think there's a bigger question, though, of a mindset. Like, this government's mindset when it deals with the private sector is, what are you trying to get away with? And let's find a new way to say no. And the actual, excuse me, sorry, I just dropped something here. The real mindset that we should have when it comes to the private sector is, how can we help you thrive? Because we know that we can do things responsibly. We know that we can do things in a way that benefits all British Columbians. And we know we need a thriving private sector driven economy to not only provide those jobs and opportunities, but also to provide the revenues into government that help pay for all the things that we want to see: better healthcare, making sure that we have our rural ERs staffed so they're not shutting down all the time, making sure that we have our police out in a way where they're able to operate safely and deal with some of the stuff that we're seeing on our streets. So there's so many layers upon layers there, but there's a lot we can do, and I've barely scratched the surface of what I'd like to achieve.
Thank you. Next here to Spencer says, hello, as a lifelong NDP voter, I have mourned the few public sector union members and family who are upset with the direction of British Columbia. The one worry is that the Conservatives have been thought of as non-union. How do you put their minds at ease? We like the common sense approach you put forward, but there are some reservations.
Yeah, no, I get it. Parties on the right have historically had, like, sort of a, what do you want to call it? Like, a sort of conflicted relationship with some of the unions. And so I think that that's where that perception comes from. Look, I think that what I want to see as government, if I'm fortunate enough to win this race and to win a mandate from the public more generally in a general election, what I want to see is like a world where there's a lot of aligned interest on that front. I think there's a lot of alignment in the fact that I want to see people get fair wages. I want to see people have safe working conditions. I want to see, on the trade side, like, lots of training and apprenticeships and so on. And speaking of the trade side, like, we want to make sure that we have a really strong, booming economy, so there's plenty of work for everyone, union and non-union alike. So um, there is a lot of alignment, and I'm like, my door is open to conversations about how we can achieve that. Obviously, our obligation as government is also to make sure that we're looking out and balancing that with the interests of taxpayers. We've got to do that too. We've got to deliver value for money, but there's absolutely a way that we can balance these priorities, I think, in a way that works for British Columbians more generally, and the workers who are involved in doing that work as well.
Thank you, Caroline. Next to Mike says, what sets you apart from the other strong conservative leadership candidates?
Thank you. Yeah, we're lucky in this race to have some strong people in it, and and like, as I alluded to a moment ago, there's some things that we are all going to agree on as conservatives. I mentioned small government. I mentioned low taxes. I mentioned less regulation and so on. I think my priority on education is a big one where I talk a lot about it. I'm very focused on that because of my own small kids in the school system and what I'm seeing take place there. Happy to talk more about that. But the other thing is, to me, it comes down to political will, or another word for it might be courage. Some of the things that we're talking about doing here are going to require a lot of political will. scrapping Clean BC, reforming our education system, pulling that activism right out, pulling the NDP's ideology out by its roots across the entire public sector. These things are going to require a lot of political will. There's going to be a lot of blowback, and probably nowhere is that more obvious than a policy like DRIPA, which I've said I will repeal in full. I was speaking up on DRIPA years and years ago. I was speaking up against the ethnicity-based park closures, which I still believe and still speak up on, in saying that it's very wrong. I was speaking up years ago on the Land Act amendments that the NDP were trying to sneak through. Um, I was speaking up against the HIDA agreement, which was the precursor for the disastrous Cowichan decision. So I've been speaking up on some of these issues back when it was very, very difficult to do so. And now it's become politically, as a conservative leadership candidate, I think all the other candidates have found it quite politically easy to add their voices to this idea that we need to repeal DRIPA. My view is, if you weren't speaking up on it when it was hard, if in fact, when it was hard, you were actually voting for DRIPA, if you were encouraging it to be, adopted into the corporate sector as leadership candidates in this race were doing, if you were, incorporating it into your own personal business practices, which some of the candidates in this race were doing, if you were doing all that then because that was the politically easy thing to do, then you're not going to be willing to do the hard work it takes and push through the political difficulty of actually repealing it. And I use TRIPA as an example because I think it's the same for many of these issues that I've been speaking up on for many years. So to put it very shortly, I guess to sum up, it's courage, it's political will, it's the knowledge that when I say I'm going to do these things, I'm going to do it because that is truly my mission in running for this leadership and with the hope of forming government is to drive these very desperately needed changes through.
Thank you so much. Next one here, I think is a funny one to me because I see your schedule, so I know what you still have going on. Bob asks, what are you doing after tomorrow? Take a break or something cool?
Oh, Bob, I wish I was doing something cool. No, it's a look, this is what I signed up for. I'm not complaining about it. We've had such good events and we've like truly, I've had this, it's such a unique opportunity, I have to say, like this whole experience, meeting with people all over BC, seeing every corner of British Columbia, like how beautiful it is, how absolutely majestic it is, like how much is worth fighting for. And the people, their excitement for change and their willingness to get involved in what we're doing here as a party and what I'm doing with my candidacy. It's been really cool. So I feel very fortunate. It's been a lot of work too. So what happens next? I mean, today is the last day for verification. I think you're alluding to that. So you got to verify your ID. But after today, it's still, we've got to raise those funds. We've got to make sure we're funding a campaign that takes us all, to continued engagement around the province, which we're going to keep doing. It's about meeting people. I've got some events coming up in, I think, Vancouver and Burnaby and some other places. We've got more town halls on the books. So it's really just about keeping up that engagement and then making sure ultimately that when I think it's Saturday, Danny will correct me in a moment if I'm wrong, when voting begins, I really should know this, that people are actually remember to vote, that they have everything they need to cast that vote. And that'll be a big push starting on Saturday.
Yes, voting starting Saturday. Check your emails, and also ahead of that, you got to be verified by midnight tonight to vote. So, if you like what you hear and want to make sure Caroline's our next leader, please get verified today. If you're not, put a question in the Q&A. We have team members that can help you. I'm going to tie these two questions together, and then like as I'm rereading them, I'm like they're totally different, but I think you'll see, why they're together. It's about infrastructure, and I want to make sure we get to as many questions as possible. So, respect to the members. So, first one from Kevin. Asked on an earlier town hall, you mentioned replacing the second narrows due to the North Shore current gridlock traffic situation. That's still two crossings. What about the third crossing previously studied? The traffic on the North Shore is absolutely terrible. Tying it in, another bridge, totally different. Darren asks, since you're up here in the North Piece, the elephant in the room is the Taylor Bridge. What's your plan?
I just drove over the Taylor Bridge today, and it came up both in Dawson Creek and in Fort St. John with good reason. They were saying if you think it's bad driving over it, go look under it, and you won't want to drive over it again. Is what they were saying to me. It's a huge issue, and it's like it's one of those ones where. I think promises have been made repeatedly and nothing seems to happen. So, look, like we need to look at like this is the thing. Like Ironworkers Bridge on connecting to the North Shore, a similar story in the sense that it was built to serve a much smaller population. Same with the Taylor Bridge. it's facing huge maintenance concerns because it's so late in its life. In the case of the Taylor Bridge, the amount of impact it has from the economic side of things, the trucks and so on. Like, I mean, I have to say, like, you hear about road conditions in the north, like anyone who might be on this town hall with me who's in the northeast will know exactly what I'm talking about. Coming out of the Taylor Bridge and you realize there's no road lines on the road, so you don't know if you're on the passing lane or which side of the road's passing lane it belongs to, because there's no yellow line, there's no white lines. You kind of have to figure it out. It's very dangerous. The roads are rutted because of the weight of the trucks and so on, and years of lack of maintenance. So yeah, like the infrastructure deficit is real, and it's especially real in the north, and it's abundantly apparent to anyone who comes here. Similarly, with the Ironworkers Bridge in particular, you like last year there was a pothole in the bridge. You could literally there were reports you could see the ocean through the hole in the bridge. That's a problem. And again, that was built for a far smaller population than it's serving today. So my point with all of this is um, we have a government that has somehow doubled our debt. They're on track to triple it within the fiscal planning period. They've turned a $6 billion surplus into a $13.3 billion deficit in short order. And I find it incredible to me that like the amount of money that they're spending versus the results that we're actually seeing in terms of needed infrastructure. And this it goes for infrastructure, but it also goes for services as well. So yeah, like we need to get building in British Columbia again. We need to get our economy firing on all cylinders so we have those revenues into government so we can fund that. We need to make sure we're not wasting all our money on administration and the cost of government to just managers managing managers, and actually start making sure that we're spending it on things that actually deliver results. That includes infrastructure. It includes things like the Taylor Bridge. It includes things like the Second Narrows Ironworkers Bridge in North Bend as well.
Thank you, Caroline. And next one here, I'm going to answer from Don Sullivan. He says, "I've never been part of electing leader for a party. What can I expect to experience in this process? What's this first choice, second choice, etc." I got to have a look at what the process looks like. It's super simple. You're going to get emailed a code on Saturday where you're going to be able to hop on there, put the code in, and get access to the voting platform. You don't have to choose all five. You can choose up to five. So there'll be a little box on the left. You choose one beside Caroline, hopefully. And then if you do want to put 2, 3, 4, 5, you can do that beside the other candidates. And if you have any other issues with voting, you can pass it off. But now I just see that a pleasant surprise. We have Mr. Stockwell Day has hopped on to say a few words. How's it going, Stock?
Hey, it's going well. You can see in my office environment here, I am in my vehicle. I am picking up my granddaughter at her basketball practice. So if you see a beautiful 14-year-old girl hop in the car, that's what's going on there. She'll be hopping in any minute. You may get to meet her, you may not. And great to be with everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for hopping on. While you're here, I know you're busy. You'll have to run soon. Do you want to just maybe reiterate? We had a phenomenal town hall the other night, and you led that and asked some great questions to Caroline. Would love to hear just a reiteration of why you decided to endorse Caroline in this race, and then just some perspective as well. This is the end of verification, so all the members that are on this call need to be verified by tonight in order to vote. Get out the vote is starting in
Whoa.
a couple days. So yeah, Stock, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, great. Yeah, verification's got to happen. And it's not as intimidating as a lot of people might have thought at first. If my wife and I could figure it out without my grandkids' help, then it's easy to do. You know, Carolyn really caught my eye, actually caught my wife's eye first. We were looking at all the candidates. We know quite a few of them. Some of them we know quite well. And each candidate has really, in this race, really got some positive attributes. But when you aggregate them all and look at the combination of policies, and then, of course, the next most important thing, first of all, understand who has the policies and the principles that matter most, and then who can win in the election, and that's really key. So when I look at the combination of experience that Carolyn's bringing to the table, knowing what it is, she's had to learn the hard way, and she has over a period of years, knowing what it is to work with a large team, first of all, inside of government, in terms of public officials, putting together large teams of people. And then in the private sector, with her consulting experience, working on gigantic projects, BC Hydro, Site C Dam, some of the things that she was retained for by the private sector to figure out, all involving complex issues and really interesting blend of large teams of people. That takes some know-how, it takes learning and training, but it takes some good instincts, and she's got all of those. So just on the people factor and on the knowledge factor, I think it's pretty tough to find another candidate who's got that breadth of experience. Like the fact that she is a trendsetter. She was the first one out the gate quite a while ago on the concerns about DRIPA when people were concerned and people were afraid to speak up because of what the media would say. I found with Carolyn that she's going to stand for the things that matter most, and she's not going to be intimidated by media. She's smart. She responds thoughtfully and sensibly, but with strength and courage. So all of those things really sort of grabbed the attention. And you know what? For those of you who watched, especially the first debate, she's not somebody who's going to get pushed around. When I was watching that first debate, I said to my wife and some of the others of us who were watching, it's going to be interesting to see how Carolyn stands up. And being perceived, at least perceived as in the lead, everybody sort of comes at you. And right off the bat, they really went after her. One of the candidates, no sense mentioning his name here, he went after her pretty aggressively right at the start. I thought, wow, that guy has been, somebody let him off the leash. But you know what? She has a way of pushing back with strength, with thoughtfulness, and without slurring or without going after a person personally. She absolutely sticks to going head to head on the policies, on past experience, keeping it real. And, she just stands out among the pack that way. And I can tell you from being in a number of races over the years, stamina is really a key. And, she just continues to look fresh. She comes out right off the point, and she's not going to let anybody down. So the other thing I just want to mention before I hand it off or hand it back to you, when in the campaign itself, once that starts, this is the broader electorate. There's a gigantic number of Gen Z and millennials that are out there, and they're looking for someone who can see, who looks through the world, the lens, like she does and like they do. And they want to see somebody who's strong, but the old days, maybe when myself and others were in the arena and there was a lot of let's face it, hard hitting back and forth. And sometimes you would just be out there to be aggressive. And they're going to, I could see, and I've already seen it and talked with people who are, let's say, in the Gen Z crowd, the millennial crowd, we need those votes. I think of all the candidates, and take a close look at all of them, listen to all of them. Uh, None of those candidates is going to be able to draw, especially from that cohort, like she will. She's already got, the baby boomers confidence, and she's the one who can really get to that other audience, take us over the top, move the socialists out of power.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Stockwell Day. It's always great to have your wisdom and have you on here. And thank you again for your endorsement for Caroline. We really appreciate it.
All right, all the best. We're all going to keep hard. We're going to drive hard to the finish line here, and watch Carolyn take it off. But we cannot take anything for granted. This is a tense race. There's no question about it, and she knows that.
Awesome.
Thanks, Stock. You're very, very kind. And I'm very, very, very fortunate. As you know, I've said this so many times to you, but I mean it every time. So fortunate to have your endorsement. I always say to people, you know what it takes to keep people together, to win, to lead on the tough issues. And it's huge for me, given your stature in BC, honestly, Western and Canadian politics as a whole, to have that support. So it's so appreciated.
Well, thanks for saying that, but you're an easy person to support, and it's just going to be great as we continue pressing on here.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Awesome.
all the best.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
All the best.
All right, we are going to roll into the next set of questions here. I was going through to pick a bunch that are on different topics from members in the crowd. You touched on DRIPA briefly, Caroline, earlier on, so I think it's good to go a little bit more in depth here. Question from Nick. He says, "How will you actually repeal DRIPA? Please be specific on the process and how long you think it's going to take."
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I had the question worded almost identically to me today, just an hour or two ago in Fort St. John here. Almost the same wording exactly. A lot of people are interested in the process, but a lot of people are also, I suspect in the way you're asking the question, there's a sense that it's not going to be very easy. And you're right. It's not going to be easy. The actual logistics of doing it legislatively are relatively easy. Like if we can get a strong conservative majority government, which I think we can, then we'll have the votes we need. We'll draft up a piece of legislation. We can call it the Repeal DRIPA Act or whatever we want to title it. It's going to be more than just repealing DRIPA. There's all kinds of elements of DRIPA that have been put into other pieces of legislation that we'll have to address as well. So that's part of it. But that's almost the easy part. The hard part is the pressure we're going to come under. And we're seeing this with David Eby right now. You'll recall that he was talking about originally defending DRIPA, saying it was the greatest thing ever. And then he went to like, oh, shoot, maybe this isn't the best, and we're going to amend it, because even he realizes the impact it's having on our economy. Then he was like, well, I can't get away with that, so I'm just going to suspend parts of DRIPA. But even that he came under fire on, and he's canceled that plan. He's not doing it. He paused it or whatever he said. So he's pausing his plans to suspend parts of DRIPA. And he's doing that because he received a letter from some groups like the Union of BC Indian Chiefs and the First Nations Leadership Council and these various groups. And the kind of threats that are being made are of like using words like collective resistance and so on, like suggesting blockades or other such responses to any government policies in this regard. So I think that we'd be lying to you and ourselves if we were going to pretend that this is going to be some easy thing to do on that side of things. Legislatively, sure, but on this side of things where it's like public pressure, the potential for blockades and so on. But I have a few things to say about that. One, like wherever I can have a productive conversation and find allies like, First Nations businesses or resource-friendly First Nations who understand how problematic DRIPA is, anywhere I can have those conversations and bring people on board and speak with a united voice, of course I want to do that. But at the end of the day, we have to say to ourselves, this is not how we resolve problems, like making threats, talking about blockades. This is not how we resolve our differences in a democracy. And we cannot let those kinds of threats hold our province hostage from doing the right thing. And doing the right thing for British Columbians, Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike, means repealing DRIPA because it is highly anti-prosperity. It is killing our economy. It is very undemocratic. It's taking us away from our fundamental principle, which I will ensure is restored, which is that decisions over public land and resources are made by the people we elect, and making sure that we don't have this incredibly divisive scenario that David Eby has created and the NDP have created. So at the end of the day, we may get those kinds of threats. We may have to enforce the law. We may have to go there, but and we will go there if we have to. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to act as a provincial government in the public interest of all British Columbians. I'm not sure every candidate will have that sense of urgency and that commitment to driving that policy through.
Thank you. Next here to Dawn, and you did touch on this a little bit earlier, but we have had a lot of people hop on throughout. Dawn asks, maybe I missed, but I didn't hear you say how you will bring the party together.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, it's a huge issue. And the thing I would say is, like at the end of the day, we can, you'll probably have seen the same polls I have. They're polls that show the NDP behind us as conservatives. Conservatives are leading. This is good news. So we're leading by more than we have in a long time. All really good. But at the end of the day, if we fall apart, if we split up, if we become a bunch of different factions, we will be handing a majority government to David Eby and the NDP, or whoever leads the NDP. And I'm not going to let that happen. It's one of the reasons I'm in this race is because I believe I can keep this party together a lot better than the other candidates can. There are some who could win where you might see a party on the right, like One BC, get some air in its tires. There's others who might win, and you could see, a party on the center, like, I don't know, the old BC Liberals get some air in their tires. We can't have that. We have to be together to defeat the NDP. So part of what I've been doing is saying, don't just take my word for it. Don't just listen to me talk about it. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm demonstrating. And what I'm demonstrating right now is a really broad range of support. I would say through my endorsements alone, that is a broader range of support than I think any other candidate is showing right now. So if you look at the fact that I have endorsements from people like Harman Bangu, MLA Harman Bangu, MLA Christina Lowen, and Brian Tepper. These are grassroots movement conservatives who were all, figures in the revival of the modern version of the Conservative Party as we see it today. So that's an important group. But then I also have the support and endorsement of prominent free enterprisers like Gordon Campbell, like Daryl Jones, and then of course I have the support of Stockwell Day as well. So these all represent very different but very important factions of our base and our party, and that's the range of support I believe that we're going to need to win in the next election.
Thank you. Next one here from Jay. What is your long-term vision for Western Canada, and how would you position British Columbia's relationship with Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the broader Western provinces on issues like energy, trade, infrastructure, and economic growth?
Thank you. Yeah, really important. My view is kind of simple, maybe. British Columbia has got to stop under this government roadblocking not just Alberta's success, not just the West success, but our own success. And that's what they do. Every time there's take the pipeline as just one example. David Eby's first answer was no, right? And he starts making up all these reasons, and he starts criticizing, he starts getting mad when Alberta gets a deal with the federal government and so on. I have news for you, David Eby. He is responsible not only for roadblocking Alberta's success, but our own success, the West success, and Canada's success, because they can't succeed if we don't, and we can't succeed if they don't. So it truly is time to start working as partners together, making sure that we're saying, yes, if there's a private sector proponent who wants to build a pipeline to Tidewater, we're not going to stand in the way. Of course, we will fulfill all of our obligations to make sure that it's done responsibly. We can do that, to make sure that it's done in a way that financially, materially benefits British Columbians. We can do that too. But at the end of the day, we're not just going to find new ways to say no. We're going to say, how can we help you be a success and ourselves be a success? And the only thing I'll add to that is in terms of dealing with the federal government as well. I get asked about that quite a lot. How would you deal with them, and will you be adversarial to the federal Liberals, or what's your stance going to be? My view is this: if you're running to lead British Columbia, you have to be putting the interests of British Columbia first and foremost. So regardless of my preferences and how I vote federally, I will work with this federal government. I will, if they are going to do good things for BC. And if they're going to propose bad things for BC or things that don't help us, I will be the first to say, no, we're not going to do it this way, and I'm going to demand to do it better. And honestly, the same goes if there was a change of government federally. I will work on anything good for BC, and I will condemn anything bad for BC. And I think that that's our job as political leaders who are seeking to lead this province.
Thank you. And next one here, I think an important one to touch on tonight. I saw, a question here that's like, why are your opponents calling you a liberal? And I think for a lot of people, especially people that might have moved to British Columbia, there maybe a misunderstanding around how politics previously worked, in BC with the BC Liberals. So I want to read the next question here from Carrie and let you talk on that. It says, I'm an OG supporter and then fell off the wagon a bit when I found out that you used to work for the BC Liberal Party and ran for West Vancouver Capilano as BCU when there was a Conservative Party in place. Mentions ties with Falcon. I want to vote for you, but this is an issue with me and a lot of people I speak with.
Yeah, look, thank you for those questions. And I'm happy that never let it be said that we don't take the hard questions, because I actually like the hard questions. It allows me to kind of clear the air on some of these issues. So, and if for people who are new to BC especially, or new to politics in BC, It sometimes sounds funny when people were involved with the BC Liberal Party before. So I'm a lifelong federal conservative. I supported Stephen Harper even before he became prime minister. I've posted photos from way back then at his rallies and so on. And so I'm very proud of that. But here in BC, we had two parties to choose from. It was the NDP or the BC Liberals for many, many, many years, from 1991 essentially right through to 2024. So anybody, including federal conservatives who were politically active in BC, were part of the BC Liberal Party if they weren't part of the NDP. Obviously, I was not part of the NDP. So that's that background. And many of my fellow people running in this race. In fact, I think every single one running in this race has some history with that party, either as donors or MLAs or volunteer involvement and so on. So I think that's just something that people have to know that context about. And yeah, like I ran as a candidate. I actually played a key role though in standing that party down to make sure that there was nothing in the way of the Conservatives in fighting that next election, to make sure that we didn't split that vote, as I keep warning about, so that we would have the best possible chance of denying the NDP a huge supermajority. And that was successful. We didn't make it as Conservatives all the way into forming government. We got really, really close though. But one thing we did do is we held this government to a very, very slim majority that they're still kind of trying to deal with today. And it's deprived them of their ability to act with a strong mandate. So I'm actually very proud of my record in that regard.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. Great answer. Next one here, and this is great because you're in the north. Question from Jay says, I am a rural resident and I don't always see that rural areas are treated the same as urban and incorporated areas. How can you convince the rural areas of BC that you are the best candidate for them?
Yeah, like I hear that and I hear it loud and clear, especially in the north where I am right now, Fort St. John, if anybody was not at the beginning of the call in a hotel room. Look, it's a few things I would say. One thing that I really want to do to make sure that communities are properly heard. I mean, look, if I can be really frank, I don't think we're going to see this NDP government properly respond to the needs of rural communities. We can try to raise those issues. We can push them really hard, and we will. We will keep holding them to account in the legislature. We will keep speaking up on all of those things that matter to rural communities. But at the end of the day, we're going to need a change in government if rural communities are going to actually have, and northern communities are going to have a seat at the table. One of our tasks is going to be to recruit great talent, make sure we have a super strong set of MLAs. We are already very fortunate to have a bunch of very, very strong MLAs in seats that we don't hold. We want to recruit new talent in and replace the NDP in those ridings, form government, and then make sure that those voices are heard, not just at the cabinet table, but in the caucus room and so on. So I think we'll start seeing way better results, I think, for those communities once we form a strong conservative government that actually wants to have everyone at the table and hear those perspectives.
Thank you. And as we're getting into the closing time of the town hall, I have a going here, and I'm going to try to bring my energy because it's been a long day, but I want to try to encompass the energy that I think that they wrote this with because there's a lot of periods and I think some good points in here. Hi, how do my kids afford a home? We are taxed to death. Prices are sky high. Tuitions are crazy. BC is financially broke. The youth are being left behind, and I don't think I can keep mine to stay. Thoughts?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you for submitting that question. And I detect the frustration in it. And I feel it because as a mom of my young kids, I'm worried about that too. Are they going to stay? Are they going to look at those cheaper housing prices and bigger paychecks and lower taxes elsewhere? And are they going to move before too long? The number of people I've met on the road, as I've said, I've met hundreds of, I think probably thousands of British Columbians. I'm so lucky to have this opportunity. And, the one thing that comes through on the one hand is a sense of hope and optimism and excitement for change. But on the other hand, it's almost like a mirror image is sort of cynicism and despair and a feeling like, maybe I should just leave. And, it's a lot of young people. It's actually not just young people though, who are looking at just crossing the line into Alberta and saying like life is better there. And I just say to people, I'm like, guys, we don't give up hope. We're so close. The polls are showing that the public's behind us. The energy that we're feeling through this leadership campaign tells me that people are behind us. We're going to find out who wins this race on May 30th, of course. That's going to be a whole new impetus for making sure that we're ready to defeat the NDP in the next election. So I feel hopeful. And yeah, like on each of the policies you mentioned, or each of the items you mentioned, there's a whole set of policies that need to come with it. Like whether it's housing prices, just making it less expensive to build, for goodness sakes. Government talks about affordable housing. All they do is layer costs on building code requirements, accessibility, unit cooling, zero carbon step code, all these different things that they layer onto the price of building that just puts things even more out of reach. Then they layer on the PST expansion on top of that, which makes it even more expensive and makes everything more expensive in BC, frankly. We've got to we talked earlier about taxes being such a huge burden on British Columbians and one of the biggest burdens they face without even kind of realizing it on a day-to-day basis. So we have to do some pretty big things in that regard. There's a huge sort of range of actions that we need to take to address it. But I would say in the meantime, like, don't give up hope, because we are doing some really cool things in this party, doing some really cool things as part of my campaign. We're going to be setting out some, if I'm successful, after May 30th, we're going to be coming all around the province, getting people motivated, bringing all the teams together, getting all those policies down that actually speak to the local communities. We talked about the Taylor Bridge. That's one really good example that belongs in an election platform. Those are the kinds of things that we need to learn and hear from the different communities, show them it's reflected, build that momentum and that excitement, and actually form government. So I feel good about it, even though I completely understand your frustration and your sense of sort of hopelessness about where things are at under this government.
Thank you. And as we're going a little bit over time here, but I want to get to at least one more question from the crowd. And just want to plug again, if you're still unverified on this call, you have until midnight to get that done. So I know we've been answering a bunch of questions and had some people hop on phone calls like right in the middle of this to help you. So if you need help, please get that done. Last question here from the crowd, Caroline, before we finish up. Says, as I've spoken to others about voting for you, others have spoken about lack of experience in acting in Parliament. Can you share your thoughts as to how you will address this?
Yeah, thank you. And again, another one that I'm happy to take head on. I mean, I started my career working in the legislature many years ago, learning about the intersection of policy and politics and so on. Spent years on at the time, the province's largest infrastructure project, the Site C Dam, which is actually almost just behind me here in Fort St. John. I've spent years working in the natural resource sector, trying to advise clients in a steadily deteriorating investment climate in BC. But more importantly than all of those things, I think what we need right now, we need fresh leadership. We need a different approach. We don't need another manager of the status quo. We need to challenge the status quo. And that's what I bring, is just a very different way of doing things, a very different perspective, a huge commitment to actually driving those changes through. And I'll tell you honestly, I said this in the last debate, when I have taken on the NDP in my various capacities and things that I've done in the past, I've won, right? When I took on their flawed referendum on electoral reform, I won. When I took on their plans to cancel the Site C Dam, I won. Like when I took on their flawed Land Act amendments and their race-based park closures, I won. I've taken on DRIPA, obviously, and their whole land back agenda. And I think we're winning that fight too. So I've taken them on many times. I think I've successfully driven change many times, and that's what we need, is the courage to take on some of these issues that feel maybe a little bit unpopular, but that we know at our core are the right thing to do.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And yeah, as we're closing up here, I'll pass it back to you for some closing remarks as we're finishing verification. But I do want to mention there were a lot of questions we didn't get to tonight. Please send an email to team@winforbc.ca with your questions. I know the team is great at getting back to everybody that sends those in. And I want to say again as well, final plug: 3 hours until close. So if you like, what Caroline's saying and you support her, please do reach out to your friends and family that are members and make sure that they're verified. A lot of people think that they're verified just because they bought their membership, but they're not. They have to go through this ID verification process. And I see some people sending some gratitude and like saying, thank you, you have our votes and things coming in. So thank you again for your support. So with that, Caroline, I'll pass it back to you for some closing remarks here.
Well, look, I should be the one saying thank you for taking part in this. So, like, honestly, I'm so happy to have had the chance to connect with all of you. I so appreciate your interest and your engagement. It's so important where we're at in this race right now, where we're at and what it means for our party and for our province. It's honestly, it's so exciting it's easy to get caught up in the negative. It's easy to talk about how everything's broken. It's easy to talk about the problems with the economy and the fiscal issues and and healthcare and public safety and so on. We all know that stuff. That's why we're here. The reality is, like, this is a juncture where we get to decide, do we have more of the same or do we change drastically for the better? So just by even being involved in this town hall, you're part of that. And I just thank you so much. I look forward to, I hope, meeting you on the campaign trail if I'm successful as I come around the province. And we're going to have more, I think we're going to have more town halls. So there will be other opportunities to join and answer your questions, but otherwise please submit them. I'm happy to take them and respond. So thank you, everybody, is really what I wanted to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline, and thank you everyone for being here. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.